Right, well, we'll get started this morning. So we talked a lot. Last week, we kind of, each week in this morning rally, we just kind of set up an intention for the week and just kind of look at things that we need and just kind of set that mindset of where we want to go. So we talked last week, we talked about failure and using failures not as something that we're not good at or capable of, but as an opportunity to learn and grow, right? And if we're doing it right, we should be experiencing things that don't go well all the time, or things that are hard, or things that we can't do 100% at first, because that means we're positioning ourselves outside of that comfort zone, right? And if we're not growing, we're really not moving forward. If it feels comfortable all the time and we're able to be perfect, then we're not pushing ourselves enough. So I challenged everyone this last week to share in the group, right? To celebrate those moments that they were learning or failing forward, or things didn't go well, and then how they overcame that, or what they'll do next time to make that stronger. So there was another one that I thought of yesterday as I was doing my meal prep. I had gotten eggs out for a recipe, and I have like these hard-boiled eggs, and all last week I was going to have these hard-boiled eggs, but then I was like, I'm not going to peel them. I don't have time to peel them. I don't have time to so I learned from that, right? And so I peeled them all this week. I told my son, I'm like, if you want hard-boiled eggs, they're peeled now, we can actually eat them. I said, I know I was avoiding them last week because I just didn't have them that much more prepped. So that was a good learning opportunity for me to kind of grow through. So did you have any learning opportunities, Pascal? Anything you can think of?
All the time. I'm living alone with my daughter these days, so every day we try to do something different, but it's still pretty cold around here. It's only like a few degrees above freezing. So some days, because we're in Celsius, so it's kind of different, but 32 is 0 for us. Mm-hmm. And right now it's 6, so it's just a few degrees above 32.
Yeah.
So we do a lot outside. I want to start jogging outside. I'm jogging on my treadmill right now, but I have to go outside. It'd be easier, I think, to run the 5K.
Yep.
Seeing something than seeing the walls in my basement.
Absolutely. It gets dreary for sure. Good. Looking forward to that is a good thing. So,
but I got all my my containers, and I got the mindset binder back out because I need to mix the two. I find sometimes in the containers I eat some stuff that I don't know where to put, so I got this back out. Nice. I'm gonna try to work with both together.
Awesome. Good. Tracking makes a big difference for sure, just to see what's working for us and what isn't working. So that's awesome. That's awesome too. So share your aha moments, things that are working for you. Like, that's good. So we'll celebrate those together. So I was, a couple of things I wanted to just kind of share today. So I finished our book, Compound Effect, last night.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wow.
And I just had a little extra time to read yesterday, so it was good. But one thing that it talks about that I really liked is in one of the latter chapters, he talks about like how to accelerate your results, right? So once you kind of get going and you understand that those small things are going to add up and lead us in the direction to success, we can accelerate those if we push past those hard spots, right? So when he talked about like hitting the wall, and being a runner, you kind of know like that experience of like hitting that wall when all of a sudden your energy just drains and you're kind of at that point where you're like, do I stop or do I push through, right? Like exercise is a really good analogy for that, because we all kind of get to that point where we're so tired and it's like, but you still have a few more reps to do, or you still have some distance to cover, and it's like that decision point of what do you do? And a lot of times you even hear trainers talk about how, you should be super tired and then pushing through those last few reps. What happens? You grow the most, right? You grow the most in those last couple of reps. And so he talks about that, like hitting the wall. And I really liked what he said. He said, hitting the wall isn't an obstacle, it's an opportunity, right? And if we can think of it that way, like when things get hard or we get tired of things or we feel unmotivated to keep going, like think about hitting that wall. And this is what he said. He said, when conditions are great, things are easy, there aren't any distractions, no one is interrupting, temptations aren't luring, nothing is disturbing your stride, that too is when most everyone else does great. It's not until situations are difficult, problems come up, temptations are great, that you get to prove your worthiness for progress. As Jim Rohn would say, don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. When you hit the wall in your disciplines, routines, rhythms, consistency, realize that that's when you are separating your old self, scaling that wall and finding a new, powerful, triumphant, and victorious self. So I thought this was really timely to talk about, as we're headed into week 3 of this Be Brave challenge. So we're about halfway mark. In the first couple weeks, like when you're like rejuvenating yourself or you're starting something new, like it's easy to stay motivated, right? You're just kind of on that high of making that decision to make the change. And, it just kind of carries you through. But after a while, life can start creeping up, like you said, those temptations or those trials or, your family needs something or, all of these things that seem to add into, need of your time or things that are hard. And it's easy to start to flatten out, right? And to kind of go back to your old habits or kind of wonder, is it worth it, right? Maybe you've seen a little bit of weight loss, but you haven't seen like a tremendous amount of weight loss in 2 weeks, right? And so you're saying, is it worth it, right? That's the point where we have that, there's a decision point right there, right? And we either choose to push through that wall, push through that hard, or we go back to zero, right? It takes us right back to the beginning and we got to keep starting. And every time we have to keep starting, it's harder, right? It gets harder and harder to start that back up. So I just want to challenge everybody this week, like because every week we find some type of a wall, right? We'll hit some wall, whether it be in your workout or in your nutrition or a moment where, there's chocolate cake available and you're like, do I want that? Is it going to serve my goals? Like, I just challenge you to move through that wall, move through how far you've already been to go a little bit farther, right? To say yes to your goals a little bit longer, to, do that extra rep, whatever that is for you to like push through that wall, because that's where you elevate yourself to get to that better point of where we need to go. So think about that wall. And then I was listening to, I joined this group on Facebook. It's called Rise Up. And it's been great. Like they've just had speakers from like all over and talk about business and fitness, spiritual growth, faith, family, like just a bunch of different topics, like all of those different areas of our life that are important. And one of the speakers yesterday, his name was Coach Michael Burt. And he was like, he said a few things to me that I hadn't really thought about before, but a lot of what he was talking about was confidence. And, what confidence was, how we gain more confidence. And I think it goes hand in hand with hitting our wall. So he said, confidence is basically the memory of your successes, right? So when we feel that we are good at something or we're remembering or reminded of something that we can do well, our confidence grows, right? So then he was talking about, but some people would come to him and say, that's great, coach, but I haven't had that success yet, right? I haven't had that feeling of success to be able to let that carry me forward. And he said, confidence doesn't come first, right? He said, confidence is the caboose to knowledge, to skills, to the desires that we have. And so he said, the more knowledge you have, the more confidence you have, the more skills you have, the more confidence you have. The longer you commit to the small things and doing things consistently, the more confidence you have, right? So if we don't have that confidence to look back at those successes and let that propel us forward again when those moments come up, we need to just keep being that student, right? Keep those small disciplines, because that's how we get the confidence. The confidence doesn't come and then we do the things. Like we have to put that discipline in, we have to flex that muscle, even if it's for 5 seconds, right? Like my son Ben, he's been working out with Jared, my husband, doing some yoga workouts. And the other day he didn't want to do it. And I told him, I said, you just have to go down for 5 minutes. And I said, if after 5 minutes you don't want to do the workout anymore, that's totally fine. So he went down there 5 minutes, and he actually like came up 5 minutes later, right? So that was not his day to do the workout. But you know what? Like, he taught himself something, even if he didn't stay, that it was important that he just tried and did his best. And if that was his best that day, that's awesome. He can celebrate that at least he showed up for that, right? And then the next day, instead of not wanting to do it at all, it's just part of his routine, right? Because he still showed up for himself. And some of those days where we start for 5 minutes, we'll keep going, right? Because just getting started and getting that momentum to get into something is usually the hard thing. So remember that. So we got to push through that wall, because on the other side of that is where we're going to experience the most growth. I always love to think about that. Like when I'm tired and don't want to do anymore, just thinking, this is the spot where I grow the most, right? It wasn't the first 10 reps, it's the last 2 reps. So I've got to do these 2 reps, because that's why I started in the first place, was to grow, right? To get better. And then confidence, it comes at the end of that. So if we gotta be a good student. We gotta put that personal growth in place and work on that every day. So on my stories, I'm doing I challenged everyone to read 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, or listen to 10 minutes a day and share their favorite quote from what they read, and do it for 21 days, right? Solidify that habit. So if you aren't doing that right now, like, do that and share it on stories, and we'll celebrate and we'll learn from each other. Like, it's fun to see what quotes people are having and what they're reading, and how we're all learning from that together and staying consistent, right? And that brings confidence that every day you're doing that for you, and that will spill into all of your other buckets, right? One last thought from Coach Burke. He said, we need to diversify our confidence, right? If you're really confident in your workouts, but that's the only thing that you're growing in, like, it's easy to fall flat, right? But if you're taking a little confidence from working out and eating right and working on your personal growth and working on your relationships, right? And you've got all of these buckets that are helping to fuel you and bring you up, you're going to stay high a lot longer, right? And stay more motivated and be effective in hitting your goals in all areas of your life. So keep growing so that you have that confidence. Go through the wall. Share those moments this week where you go through the wall, and how it made you feel, right? Think back to that. Not just that I did it, but how does that make you feel? And you'll have a lot of confidence to keep pushing forward. So this is the time, right? Because we get to that decision point, and we're going to grow, or we're going to go back to 0. And I always think about that, and I'm like, do I want to start over again? I don't want to start over. I might flip back a tiny bit, but I don't want to go back to 0 and have to reset and redo that again. That's hard. So thoughts, Pascal? Questions?
No, Mary, that makes me think of the small steps to achieve bigger. You realize when I start training, I could never do a push-up. And now, because I built my muscles and my core, now I can do a push-up. One day I just realized I could do a push-up. I was so impressed. But it's all those small steps that I took around building the other muscle that allow me to do push-ups. So I guess it's like correlation for the same thing that happens in your life in general.
Yes. And that's great. I've never thought about that way. It wasn't just practicing push-ups that got you better at push-ups, right? It was getting the arm strength, getting the core strength, right? And putting all that together.
My son used to laugh at me and says, Mommy, it's only because you don't have muscle in your arms that you can do that. And then after training for many years, then I was able to do it. It's like, it kind of arrived. It didn't happen overnight, but I just realized one day, wow, I can do push-ups now.
Yes, that's awesome. Very good. Love it. Great. Okay, let's have a good week. Share those moments. Hit that wall and make it through, push through, and we'll do it together.
Another week confined at home. We have to find things to do.
Yes, we've got to get excited about the little things.
Exactly. Have a good one.
Good. Have a good week. Talk to you soon.
Bye.